while we've had dinner. Was there any other table that has 23 cups, 23 mugs, 12 towels, and 183 years? And there wasn't any assigned seating either. I'd like to welcome everybody to the celebration of Don Weiss at F.A. Davis. Over his career that has spanned 40 years, he has touched us all, if not merely by storied reputation or warm friendship, perhaps by the blunt instrument of his ire. An ire that emerges when Don's sense of order is disturbed, conveyed by a voice that becomes an open spigot of fast-moving words, never in search of conclusion. Many of us are privileged to have subscribed to his full repertoire. Don was hired in January of 1974. Richard Nixon was the president. Jeff Bezos was attending River Oaks Elementary School in Houston. F.A. Davis was still a year from its first computerized sales report, and I was up to my second moving violation in 4 short months as a Davis rep. Hired by Terry Vaughn, a slow-talking, easy-going Texan with a big confidence-building heart, Don became the apple of Terry's eye. Terry had trained me for a week in New Orleans about 3 months before, and if Terry said the new kid on the block was solid, the new kid on the block was solid. But Don arrived as damaged goods. 6 months after he started, he had surgery on 2 herniated discs. Don's recovery prevented him from attending what would have been his first sales meeting. Much the way the Sixers talk about Nerlens Noel, Terry anticipated big things from Don once his pain was alleviated and his mobility restored. The Sixers should be so lucky. The first time I met Don was at the Naples Beach Club for a January sales meeting. We shook hands. He told me how grateful he was to F.A. Davis and Terry and for the patience shown for his back issue. I asked him how his back was doing, and he said, "I hope you don't mind, but I have to lie down." That was easily the shortest conversation we had in 40 years. He spent the first 5 minutes of every meeting day that week in a chair, and the rest of the time on the floor, on his back, knees up, mouth moving.
Nothing's changed here.
Golf at that time for Don was wishful thinking, but Don's back got better. First time I played golf with Don, we were at Captiva Island Resort before the 1977 January meeting, and it wasn't without a healthy amount of coaxing by Bob Martone and myself. I had just become his boss, so he may have felt like he didn't really have a choice, but he did bring his own clubs. Anyway, he bitched his way through 9 holes with the indignant charm of Tiger Woods missing the cut. 4 guys shot 45, so we stopped worrying about his back. And finally, he spent a meeting in a position where we could actually see him talk. Lucky us. Don's love for sports, and especially the Dolphins, certainly resonated with me. I went to work with him in 1980 on a day when the Dolphins were playing on Monday night. It was the first time I'd ever seen anyone in person wearing a Garo Yepremian tie. She wore all day. That night, Don emerged for the kickoff in full Dolphin regalia, complete with turquoise and orange knee socks. Fortunately, we were in a motel room. I pulled the curtain closed just in case. A favored Patriots team rode a 6-0 lead into the locker room, and Don disappeared. 5 minutes later, he was back. He'd taken off every piece of Dolphins attire and replaced it with a new jersey, new shorts, new socks, and a new hat. Go Dolphins. Don was doing a Bud Light commercial before there was even Bud Light. Fortunately, Miami came back and won the game in overtime, so the rest of the week went pretty well. Dolphin games aside, we know Don to be a pretty snappy dresser. In fact, of all the people I know, the only two I cannot picture in jeans are Don and my 90-year-old stepmother.
Like her already.
You won't see a wrinkle in one of Don's golf shirts because when he detects one, he'll change that awful shirt. From an unimpeachable source, I've learned that Don has trained his pro shop at Grasslands to call him the minute a new line of golf shirts comes in. Of course, with the Grasslands logo. Nobody in Don's golf group has bought a new golf shirt for years. They just wait for Don to turn over his wardrobe. You know, there's simply no room for a shirt as unsightly as last year's model. So now I'm wondering whether my gifted golf collection of Grassland shirts was bought new, or perhaps part of the turnover.
They were new.
In the summer of 1986, we decided to change the format of the sales meeting. We had very little new product, so we met in Rockville, Maryland, the hub of a vacant territory. We paired off and made calls in the morning and reunited to compare notes in the afternoon. This was in the third week of September, with the football season well underway. Well, we all arrived on the Sunday, the day the Dolphins were playing the Jets at 1 p.m., and Don wanted to see the game. After much diligence, Don determined that there was a motel about 50 miles west of Rockville that would be his nearest access. He rented a car upon arrival, and away he went. As the suite assembled, a chorus of "Where's Don?" echoed throughout. Then someone turned on the TV, and there was his game. We watched in morbid fascination as the Dolphins squandered a late lead and lost in overtime 51-45. And we all looked around asking which poor sucker is working with Don this week. He didn't show until after dinner, which gave us plenty of time to circulate black armbands to everyone. But that did not stop him from going on and on about the defense, wasting 6 passing TDs by his all-time favorite, Dan Marino, until, of course, we reminded him that he could have seen all 6 TDs if he had just stayed in the suite.
It's a nice hotel.
The first time I worked with Don in the field, we met with 2 faculty members in a small conference room, and Don noticed a copy of Miller and Keene on the edge of the table. He impulsively grabbed it, stood up, and said, "This doesn't belong here." There was a solid metal trash can in the corner of the room. We didn't know how empty it was until Don turned and said, "It belongs in here," while dropping it from waist high. The crashing sound reverberated through the building. Women were heard running down the hall. Two reached our room breathless. "Is everything all right?" they asked. Then, "Oh, hi, Don. We should have known." Don not skipping a beat. "I'll be down to see you in 10 minutes. Not everyone was quite that forgiving. When Judy worked with Don, he asked an instructor what she was using. She sternly replied, "This book, and if you throw that in the trash can, you are out of my office." Peacemaker Judy intervened. "So, what do you like about the book?" She snapped, "If you were a nurse, you would know." Later that day, in the same department, Don, the antagonist, morphed back into Donnie Rockstar once again. Another instructor was starting her class in an amphitheater-type setting. Don says to Judy, "Come on, let's go talk to her." Judy said, "Don, just starting her class. She'll want to see me." Judy retreated and then watched in amazement as Don walked straight through the door. The instructor turned and her face lit up. "Class, I'll be with you in a moment." And Don went on to have his way with her, so to speak. Darryl McConnell remembers working with Don when they came upon a class that was still in session. Door closed. Don reached into his bag, pulled out a copy of Tabor's, pressed the cover against the glass of the door. It took a minute, but as soon as the instructor saw Tabor's, she knew what to do. Her class was immediately dismissed. And Don, again, got all the time he wanted. True to form, Don never underestimated the power of Tabor's. So let's do the math. Don is about 1 part antagonist for about every 99 parts rock star. The proof is in the numbers. Don was the first rep to hit $1 million in sales, first one to hit $2 million, and the only one ever to hit $3 million in a calendar year. One of his secrets? Never stopped for lunch in 40 years. So anyone working with him learned that a big breakfast was a necessity. Or you heard what Bob Martone heard when he once tried to stop Don for lunch. "I will see you later." Over the years, Don has gone through a few managers. In order: Terry Vaughn, Mike Darlis, me, Jim Dorley, Judy, Neil, Darryl, who held the position the longest, and Sally. When Don, not exactly a merchant for change, got word that his new manager was upstart Neil Kelly, he shared his apprehensions far enough, wide enough, and long enough that Neil, before meeting Don, was well aware. This was back in the days when Don could meet Neil right out of the gate. Neil walked off the plane and up to Don, and the first thing he said while shaking his hand, "I heard you don't want me to be your manager." To quote Neil, it's the only time Don was speechless in the 26 years of knowing him. Of course, we had a great week, and the rest is history. So let it be said, let it be written, let it be done. Don's motto is conveyed with the power of Yul Brynner in the movie Ten Commandments, who we know gets credit for the quote. In my reflections over Don's long career, the fan mail I have received on his behalf, I can honestly say it's a motto that works beautifully, no matter what the disposition of the correspondence. Let's break it down. In all of the cases, Don is the one letting it be said. I think we can all agree on that. In all of the cases, letters are being written because of things Don let himself say. And I am reading their reaction. From Don's beloved state of Mississippi, Barbara Foster from Copiah Lincoln Community College wrote, and I quote, "Never have I encountered a sales representative with his enthusiasm, expertise, professionalism, and dependability. Don also listens and follows through on suggestions made by my faculty for ways to improve a publication. Trust me, Don is the one who could sell oceanfront property in Arizona." So let it be done. Presumably a reference to that adopt a book thing that we all do. But evidently, Don is not for everybody. As I found out early in his career, way back in his second decade, I received a letter from Rosemary Adams of Mobile College. Now watch out for Mobile. In Mobile, Alabama, she requested a new representative after she said, and I quote, "We are not prepared to deal with a representative of a company who criticizes the competitor's product to the point of calling a book we are currently using trash." So let it be done. This is where I come in. In my most diplomatic prose, I am summoned to do two things. Number one, save the face of Don and the F.A. Davis Company. And number two, resist telling her how lucky she is to have her book referred to as trash, rather than becoming part of the trash can. So let it be done. Don even mastered the art of sacrifice for the greater good. Always nimble on his feet, Don could size up a situation and then audible to produce the best results. Don't look at me like that. Back in 1989, we received a letter from Janice Engel of Southern Union State Junior College in Wadley, Alabama. Janice was so proud of her discovery that Tabor's was superior that she wanted to take all the credit for herself. And I quote, "Let me assure you that it will be in spite of, not because of Don Weiss." Unquote. Don enabled her to release some pent-up anger to become, as she said, rude, obnoxious, and overbearing, just to seal the deal. Now that is nimble. So let it be done. Don's spectacular career at F.A. Davis, of course, is synonymous with the honor seized by the one sales meeting participant that grumbles, growls, gripes, groans, carps, complains, nags, whines, bellyaches, or squawks more than his or her colleagues. For misconduct that rises above the rest, we award the crying towel. For those of you unfamiliar with the award, and you'd have to be new, Don began the tradition back in 1990 at the Kings Mill Resort, innocently enough. He was captain of the June pub dates, but he soon found out that the only woman assigned to his team had resigned from the company. Her resignation had nothing to do with her team alignments, I guess. Anyway, one of Don's teammates, either Ron Gould or Greg Snow, would take an additional shot just to make it fair. Although Don had no women on his team, by the twist of fate, he was acutely aware of the distance from the men's team to the women's team. Subsequently, nobody missed Mary Helen Bond as much as Don did. Every yard, every foot, every burning inch between his ears was counted. When he realized his team finished in second place, he lashed out, looking for justice, and when he couldn't find justice, he settled for me. Rob, come with me. I followed into the first tee next to the men's markers. Can you see the women's tees from here? I squinted. Of course you can, because they're in the next county. Rob, I have no women on my team. For a second, I thought I'd fired Mary Helen, and Don thought that she was Nancy Lopez. But no, I kept telling myself, Mary Helen really did resign, and Don really is dead serious. So that began the rich tradition of the Crying Towel Award, which he received ceremoniously later that evening. The following year, we moved our meeting site to the Greenbrier. And with Haley due any day, I stayed home. So with Don's previous year's diatribe still ringing in my ears, and recognizing the audacity of my tournament producing his back-to-back second-place finishes, I sent this verse to be read on site, and of course, a towel to go with it. There once was a man who could sell a good book or one that might smell. He's done it for years, perhaps because he fears that Mosby might dip in his well. There once was a golfer named Don, whose game could be off or be on. A sad bridesmaid forever seems the scramble's endeavor to flush his high hopes down the John. Here lies a small town of pure white that's ready for Weiss's next plate. Will it mop up the beer from his mug that is near, or again catch his tears Thursday night? A pioneer in so many aspects of selling books, by 2005, he found a way to earn another towel before his plane landed. Within minutes of receiving the scramble memo, which determines team rosters, I received this response, and I quote, "Let me see, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh yeah, why?" After hearing nothing from me, he fired this off at 8 o'clock the next morning. Was it something I said to upset you? Still waiting. He sent this the following morning. I guess now I've qualified for the towel. If it's one of those nice ones from the pro shop, let the games begin. On the other hand, if it's a hand towel that you get out of your room, forget everything I said.
I'm pretty proud of that.
By the way, his team causing all of this rancor, the Dittos, were so bad it took a playoff to have them eliminated. So Don took home his 30-year anniversary towel embroidered with his name and the words, "Caution Flood Zone." So let it be done. The following year, we went to Kiowa, and through 17 holes, everything was going really well for Don. Bill Callahan had pretty much clinched the towel award. I won't explain that. And Don was at his charming best, at least for most of the week. Standing on the last tee of the Cougar course with his team Gracie and a 2-shot lead. Could it be? Could it finally happen? Could Don get his one for the thumb after 4 scramble wins? Not on this day, but not before a dramatic playoff. The drama was enhanced when it became apparent that Don, unlike most, if not all other captains, hit first, and blowing a 2-shot lead on the last hole had taken its toll on his patience. On the second playoff hole, and with Team Gracie in the middle of the fairway, Don, opening shot, hit the green. After Sally hit, he looked at his remaining teammate, Nicole Ellison, nonchalantly twirling a hybrid to and fro, and curtly said, "Get in the cart." I was standing nearby, next to the other team, as the scene quietly registered. Hugo's captain, Jonathan Joyce, turned to me, and with his tobacco-swollen smile, said, "Did you hear that?" Andy's 41-foot putt that won it for the Hugos probably should have been enough punishment for Don, but I gave the towel anyway.
I love it.
Through Don's long career, I willingly let it be said, not that I really had a choice, but as much as I have treasured my friendship with Don, I never really became the target of his ire until I borrowed his car earlier that week. I borrowed it on Sunday without incident. What I needed it again that Sunday, or that Wednesday, to settle Tuesday's outrage over our slow play the previous day. He graciously acquiesced. But that afternoon, when we were shuttled off to the golf course, I was the last one to get in a full van of Davis golfers. And as I was taking my seat, I was greeted by Don's voice from behind. "Did you put my car in valet parking?" I turned. Sweat was pouring down Don's face. He was still out of breath. I looked all over the parking lot and the car isn't there. "Don," I said, "do you remember where you left the car last night?" "Yeah." I said, "Well, Don, if you're standing behind that space and you turn around, you'll see your car." The driver tried unsuccessfully to stifle his laughter. Do you want me to drive through the parking lot so my man can see it? No, I said, we'll miss our tea time. So that day, I learned that you might get away putting a can of beer on his coffee table without a coaster the first time. You may get away with doing something idiotic, like publish a non-disc version of the drug guide for multiple editions, or even messing up his hair as long as he knows it was an accident. But no one, and I mean no one, escapes the wrath of the poor sap that puts Don's car in valet parking. The reason I'm here with you tonight is because I chose wisely. Anyone who's taken a phone call from Don knows the drill. It's why you keep so many snacks stored in your desk.
And lunch.
Don is not exactly an economy of words, more like a rich tapestry of cliches and metaphors, however blended and mixed, and then reblended and remixed. My indoctrination to the Donathon call came early, in my first month as his manager. Tabor's 13th edition was about to publish, and Don got the price memo. The one that said that the official price of the index version is $14.50, up from $12.95. When he finally dropped an octave, he became coherent, and I realized he was shouting about the plain version. You could no longer buy Tabor's under $10 because the price of the plain jumped to $12.95. Don was in full crisis mode. And it didn't matter what I said. Eventually, I realized Don had never dealt with a Tabor's price increase before. I don't remember how that call ended. All I know is that Don would go on to sell over 1 million copies of Tabor's. No matter what ridiculous price we stuck him with. Bread and butter, Funkin' Wagnalls, ham and eggs, Rolls and Royce, thunder and lightning, Don and Tabor's, Tabor's and Don. Can any of them hold a candle to Tabor's and Don? I don't think so. Like so many of Don's phone calls, I'm struggling to find how to end this speech. So let it be said. Only Don would defend Mississippi as if he was the governor. Only Don would dust daily the space on his mantle where his Bermuda scramble mug was supposed to be. Only Don would respond to a Seaview fire alarm in the middle of the night by dressing as if he was Gordon. to a job interview, complete with briefcase, and then evacuate. So let it be written. Only Don has the quickness to react to an Eric Lindros overtime goal by sliding a coaster under my beer before he meets me with an overhead high five. And only Don would wait until F.A. Davis publishes one and only one version of the Davis Drug Guide to retire this coming June. So Don, we were listening to you all this time. And lucky for me, I've been with you every step of the way. So let it be done. F.A. Davis will never forget you, my friend. And as a token of my appreciation and everybody else's for your amazing career, please accept this gift and your due of adulation. You guys will eventually be able to see the caption, but the first line says 40 years of dedicated service. The second line says 4 scramble mugs with every year that he won it. The third line says 6 crying towels and every year he won that. And then the final line says Mosby/Elsevier, Nemesis of the Year, 1974 to 2014. So I have a couple of thank yous that are very much in order. I'd like to thank George McCarty
So much.
for putting together like the slideshow and the awesome video. And Carolyn O'Brien for putting this gift together and making sure it came out on time. Darling Darden Woods is not here, but she had to put up with my perpetual reflex to edit. And, and thank you, Darlene. I could have ended
Payback.
Payback. That was close.
Yeah, maybe the karma was just kind of working one way.
I was going to say, there's no way he's doing this.
Yeah, no.
Well, I don't know how to follow that.
Yes, you
I mean, how do you follow that? Thank you for your eloquent presentation, Rob. And the trip down memory lane. Some of it I'd forgotten. Now you've brought it back to life. Thank you for that. And now that you've told everybody else about it too, that's wonderful. sharing some of our deepest secrets, although there are some secrets that will go to both of
Tell
our
them everything.
both of our graves, Rob. Some of those will go. Rest assured, you're safe. But I'm humbled by the evening. Thank you for participating and coming by. I know some of you folks who know me may not think I have a humbling moment, but this is one of those moments, and I'm really taken aback by the whole thing and the culmination of 40 years. But it's in reflecting on the whole thing, it really isn't about one person. It really isn't about me. It really isn't about anyone else here. It's about this company. It's about F.A. Davis. There's no one particular person that stands out. It's a culmination of a lot of folks who make up the whole for this company. So it has grown. You know, from 1879, still the only independent publisher left. We are the only company with still retains and maintains and holds on to a tradition. Our competitors have long since given up their right for a tradition because they've all been sold out. They've left the game. It's nice to have the things like tradition. The word long since gone and not used very often in this day, in the days of buyouts and things like that. So it's a testimony to the people who have kept this company together, from Bob Craven, Mr. Craven Sr., who, I mean, it took me, it was 15 years before I could call him Bob. I mean, I could only see myself calling him Mr. Craven till one meeting, and it was here in Philly when he finally came up to me and said, "Don, you can call me Bob." After 15 years of it, and I just said, "Thanks, Mr. Craven." But I was able to move on from Mr. Craven. He was just so stoic, and I had so much respect for him, and I couldn't look at him any other way but Mr. Craven. And what a wonderful history he had. And now on to Rob, who has driven the ship to where it is now through, I mean, Rob and I spanned 40 years in 5 different decades. It's a long time. A lot of things have happened from lifestyles to clothing styles to hairstyles to technology to changes in the industry, and Rob has guided this company through the maze and through the entire obstacle course that was ahead. And here we are today, still an independent, and truly as a family. And I've been doing, this is 40 years for me, and although I have a lot of respect, and in all due respect to everyone out here who probably enjoys their job, there isn't anybody here in this room that probably enjoyed their job better than I did. God, I love this job. I'd get up in the morning and, I just morning, noon, and night, I thought about this company, what I was going to do, plotting against our competitors. I will miss the competition. I thrived on it. I look forward to each and every day to go out and kick the competition's ass up one side of the street and down the other. That was my goal. I made it a game to make it fun. And, I just did, there are people in this room I just did not want to let down. And I would always set the bar maybe a little higher, but I just did not want to let anybody down. So I tried to do the best I possibly could to bring as much business into this company as possible. And I was given that task, and that's why it's the company, it's not the individual. The company is what gives you the opportunity. It's up to you to take the initiative and to be as good as you can possibly be, to go to the next level. It's the company that affords you to do that. And I took every opportunity to do that. I'm extremely thankful for that opportunity years ago. I'm thankful to Mr. Craven Sr. and to Rob for giving me as much rope as Rob has given me anyway, to do the things that I needed to do, and the freedom that I had. I just enjoyed this job immensely, and you might say that FAD is part of my DNA, and really, I do believe Tabor's dream. That is a fact. I had a great ride. It's been a great evening. One of the better things about this family business is that not only do I have colleagues, and we all have colleagues we work with, but that we've made some really, really good friends along the way. And you won't find that in many publishing houses who have no tradition, who have long since given up their past, and you're just a number. You're not on a first name basis. It's different here at F.A. Davis, and that's why I've been here for 40 years. It is the company that comes first. I always put it first, and I am so very fortunate to have spent the last 40 years with one company, with this company, and with this family. And I'm thankful to you all. I'm thankful for all the friends that I've made here in 40 years, friends that I will keep for years to come. And yes, the memories that Rob has brought up and the memories that I have will sustain me. And thank you for participating in this evening for me. I wish you all good health and continued great success in taking F.A. Davis to the next level of success in the future. Thanks very much.